Greetings, everyone, and Happy New Year, and especially Happy Black History Month. My name is Tanya Adams, and it is my honor to serve as the board chair for the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. I also serve as the Senior Vice President of Inclusion and Diversity for WSP. I want to welcome you to our first edition of COMTO's Chair Leadership Chats. These 30-minute conversations will feature leaders in transportation sharing their amazing stories and how their lived experiences contribute to our industry. It is my pleasure to have my first guest for this series, Mr. Matthew Tucker, Global Transit Director at HDR. Most recently, Matthew served as the CEO of the North County San Diego Transit District for 15 years. Prior to that, Matthew served as Executive Director of the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, the COO of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, Deputy Public Transit Director for Phoenix, and the Deputy General Manager for the Greater Richmond Transit Company. Matthew, you've been doing a lot. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be with you.
So let's get started with this chat. So how does your lived experience contribute to the perspective that guides the work you do each and every day at HDR?
Well, I grew up in Central Virginia in a very rural town, less than 30,000 people. My dad was a minister, so I'm a PK. And my dad also owned a construction company. My mom worked at a textile plant, and most of my uncles and family worked in different trades. It was a community that was also steeped in farming, manufacturing, and it's within that context I grew up with the values of really working hard, applying yourself. It's also kind of within that context that our parents had experienced a lot of different things coming that really impacted civil rights as we know it today, really encouraging and pushing us forward as kids to take our academics super seriously, think about the upward movement, be prepared to move on from the house after 18. And for me, as my dad owning a construction company, it was super informative. You're watching him day by day having to be responsible for the turnkey production of a residential house. I started working when I was like 12 years old on those construction sites with my dad. Over time, I could even manage the team of people that were supporting us. I would even help my dad with the financials in terms of balancing the books. And at some point, my dad decided to make a transition to a school teacher, and I continued on carrying on some of the practice work for him. And even in college, I would come home for the summer. I would have my own little construction company, obviously under his name. I would put roofs on houses, make minor repairs around houses. And it really did kind of instill in me this whole notion of, that you're going to have to work hard for what you do, the relationships that you have to build with working with people. I mean, I will tell you, it's one of my favorite jobs working in construction, being able to put my hands on something, being able to talk to people throughout the day and have that engagement with people in the process of doing the work. Obviously, you do also understand that end user expectation in terms of person who's buying this house or you're making an improvement on. It really, really, really enforced those values of hard work, being committed to a business, understanding the numbers that are associated with making a business successful, understanding the importance of quality and the delivery of what you do from a day-to-day basis. And even within that framework, the relationships, because any business that is driven or heavily steeped in people, if you're not able to create those relationships between people, I mean, from interpersonal skills, but also understand from the ability of people to have high quality of lives. Because that construction company my dad owned, we had cousins, we had nephews, we had family members that would come in and work and support with us, and we always made sure we did well by them to help them move their lives forward as well.
So you've been rolling up your sleeves for quite a while. So I understand how you've had all these different roles because of your upbringing. Um, Quite interesting there. So is the company still existing, and can you still put on a good roof?
Well, companies no longer exist. And my dad unfortunately passed away some time
Okay.
ago. I can still put on a good roof, but I don't think I would try to do that anymore.
All right. As we reflect on the upcoming 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, how do we continue to address equity for protected groups?
Yeah, it's a very important topic. The whole discussion around equity, especially I'm thinking about the context of my parents, the context of me living my life, going through college, and the things that we talked about in terms of civil rights and equity to where we are today. And it always brings me back to my roots, right? And my roots, and I mentioned kind of my dad being a minister, and which that means I grew up in the church. And most people know, I tell them, I didn't have great balance. I knew how to go to church and I knew how to go to work. It was not a whole lot of in between. Um, but what I really draw from my early life experiences, listening to my parents and going to church and watching kind of as a preacher's kid, you kind of see life how it plays out. It's what we say in the church, what we aspire to be to versus to what we are. My general sense taken from that is that human beings, all of us want to higher and better outcomes for ourselves and for others around us. And so many times when we think about and talk about this lens of equity is embracing everyone. It's not a singularly that we're going to lift the boat for one group and someone else is going to have to take a back seat, right? Because at the end, we're all human beings. And that's one of the critical things that we can't lose the humanity of. Like, if I were to tell you, Tanny, hey, I need to get ahead, but I need you to take a step back, you would probably go like, you know what, Matt, you're a very cool guy, but no.
Truly, I would say that.
Yeah, and because we focus on equity, particularly in areas or for populations that have not historically received investment, or areas that had the experiences like African Americans, where laws precluded us, institutions precluded us from access. It does not mean that someone else is getting left behind. It means that we're going to bring everybody forward. And as we bring everybody forward, we uplift the entirety of the nation, the entirety of our social, cultural, and economic experience. And I think the challenge for all of us is to see equity beyond just our individual selves in terms of benefits or thought processes about negatives, because that takes us into a different place. It's not taking us consistent with the place where Dr. King inspired for us to be, and where we all aspire to be from human beings. I I have this practice of when I go to grocery stores, coffee shops, because I'm from Virginia, I say hello to everyone. When I'm on the street, I'm saying hello to everyone. And you know what? I never have experiences where people don't say hello back to me. And saying hello and equity are like the same things, because we're embracing each other and we're acknowledging each other's existence. And our behaviors really matter when we're talking about that. How we talk about these things really, really matter. And us really expressing our humanity in a level that in an apolitical way is really what matters in terms of really helping people to connect to each other on an interpersonal way, in a way that we can relate to others. Because there's more that connects us than that divides us. And this whole equity discussion is really about, don't we all want to be connected like a strong chain? And when that chain link is connected strongly, it's a stronger chain. If there's the links that are weak, that are not connected, we're not as strong as what we can be. And that's really what I look at equity. It is about how do we strengthen who we are as a collective, how we bring the best teams forward to win, and how we really, really make sure that as we move forward with each other, that we're moving forward together, that we're connected with each other, that your problem is also my problem and your opportunity is also my opportunity.
That's all I can say for that. It's true. And I remember when I used to walk across college campuses, always speaking to see who would speak back. Just a hello. Let's
Yeah.
just start with that. So yes. Well, it kind of leads into this our third question. How can we inspire the next generation to consider careers in transportation infrastructure?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, when you read out that list that really illustrated that I can't keep a job,
I didn't say
you know, I always tell people, like, you think about it, each of those different points, like what was valuable to you and what was your happy place. Um, and in my last agency, I served as the CEO for 15 years. Um, and being a transit CEO, I think anybody who's been in it will tell you it's not an easy job. It can sometimes feel a little bit lonely. You kind of feel like sometimes you got a lot of things being thrown at you at one time, and it's impossible to really handle all that's coming your way and keep your sanity, but you can. But I always, there were a couple of different groups that I would always go to hang out, and I'll get back to the question to kind of give me balance and bring a little bit of joy and balance. One was our frontline employees. Now, it should be easy why I would be connected with our frontline employees because I grew up with people who worked hard on a day-to-day basis, and for me, being able to talk and engage and have those authentic conversations with the frontline employees, that made my day better. The other place is when I would go and talk to our younger employees. And if any of them are on the screen for my last job, our planning area was essentially a group of young new employees coming into the industry. And walking down and hearing from those employees their excitement about me coming there. And sometimes I would pose questions because, those kids, a lot of times they're so talented. So I'm going back old school in transit to see if they understand what's behind that model. I think the way that we can engage the young people is really to talk to them and really help to inspire them that they can do things. I mean, kids growing up today, they're facing different challenges. And for all of us, me included, I have a 19 and 21-year-old, it is a lot easier to say, these kids, you know what, they don't understand, what life requires of them. They're not nearly built as tough as we are, but they've had a different life experience and they've missed out on a lot of valuable things that we take for granted, like just being able to talk to each other. Instead, they've got the telephone and they're talking to each other through the telephone and through less than 50 or 100 words, right? But I know from grassroots that when you're talking to these kids, in fact, coming here at HDR, I had opportunities to talk to some of our young professionals, and you really see that energy, and they're really looking for people to connect with them and help harmonize their life experience and help point them in the right direction and help support them as they move their profession forward. So part of that is being very mindful that younger professionals or young kids who may not even have an idea may not even know what's in them. And this is one of the key benefits of us having our careers is that none of us, if we're going to be honest, got where we are by ourselves.
No.
Right? No matter how smart you are or how talented you are, you didn't get there by yourself. There's a lot of people who invested in you to get you where you are at. Along the way, I know for me, I had bosses that were doing the career planning for me because I had no idea. I was just doing the work. And they would say, you're going to go and do this. You're going to go to this training. You're going to go participate in this activity. And then finally, once a CEO said to me, his name was Pete Sapola at Santa Clara, he's like, "You're going to be a CEO." It had never occurred to me in my life to think about. Not that I was like not thinking highly of myself or not. I just hadn't thought about it. And I think, my experience in being in leadership positions is so many times people are not thinking about how awesome they are.
That's true.
And they need someone to give voice that you can do this, that you have the capacity to be able to grow in areas that you may not think you can. And sometimes to even be able to know who that person is on a more personal level and help them grow in an area where they do need to grow in, right? And it's really kind of what I would use because I'm also a former military officer. I'll use this phrase that it's a boots on the ground. We have to slow ourselves down and get to know the youth and know who they are individually and really to know their journey because every kid has a different journey. Once you can get that context of understanding that journey and building that trust, then you are really going to be in a better position. And I think it is critical for us to all slow ourselves down and really start spending that time with individual kids. I'll tell you as a parent, this is something that I'm like really trying to force upon myself is to go beyond the yes and no conversation or cool dad conversations, to force those conversations, to really push those conversations that we can talk and to dig a little bit deeper and really meet your kids on a different level in terms of helping to straddle what they view as important to them versus you may view something different because the success of that kid and reaching his highest and maximum potential may be different than what we maybe would individually aspire to. So it's really that boots on the ground. It's really caring about that individual, meeting that individual where they are at, understanding how they want to aspire and helping them to maximize that potential.
That's well said. I think sometimes we all forget that we all have different paths and different journeys we've been on. And
Yeah,
if we could share that with each other, it would make us so much better, at least to
absolutely.
be able to relate to each other. So that is so true. So you mentioned personal level. So want to get to know Mr. Matthew Tucker a little bit better. So you're going to walk out on stage. What music would be playing so we could know Mr. Tucker better?
Well, if you know me, that's like a tortured question.
Yes.
It depends on the event, but I'll say it's a song that when I'm working out, I really love it. Most people probably don't know it. It's Blowing Up. The artist is Sax. And if people go and play it, they will love it. It will be your music that when you're coming out on that stage and you're trying to generate that energy for, that massive 100 slide presentation that'll get everybody up, fired up and ready to go.
Okay, I don't know that person. I'm going to have to look it up. I'm going to be honest, but that is on my to-do list when we end this. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us some insight and sharing about your background. Your parents have done an amazing job, and you were a CEO at a young age and didn't even know it, running the company. So for that, thank you so much. I'm excited that you can catch this full episode on YouTube. Just search COMTO National. And I hope that you will join us next week for our next conversation with the very own woman who moves the nation, Ms. Henrika Buchanan from HNTB. It's Thursday, February 15th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you want to learn more about COMTO, the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, please go to comto.org.
I do want to thank you. I want to thank April Wright. You guys are absolutely doing a fantastic job at COMTO. You're really moving the industry forward. I look forward to your upcoming event of women moving the nation. It's always on my calendar, but it's much appreciation The HDR team very much values our relationship with COMTO, and we're looking forward to making 2024 an outstanding year with you all.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
one. All
Take
right.
care.
Bye.
Bye.